What's up, guys? Mark here. I'm going to go over a section in a book called The Richest Man in Babylon. Highly recommend this book. It's got a lot of great financial principles within it and investment principles. And be sure to stay till the end because I've got an exercise for you guys to apply your knowledge to make sure you're really understanding the concepts that I explain in this video. We're going over this section right here on page 32, where he's talking about a story of a farmer who, when his first son was born, took 10 pieces of silver to a moneylender and asked him to keep it on rental for his son until he became 20 years of age. So this is some good information right here at the beginning. We know a few facts. We know that the PV, or present value, of this investment is 10 silver coins. And we know that the duration, or the time period, the years, is 20 years, right? What else do we know? This the moneylender did and agreed the rental should be 1/4 of its value each 4 years. So now we got some more information here, which is the rate was 25%, and we should make a note here, every 4 years. Okay, so this is going to let us know now how to calculate what's called, in short, NPR, NPER, number of periods. So this is the question of how many times does the investment compound during the time period. So since it's over 20 years and it's going to compound every 4 years, we're going to do 20 divided by 4. So that gives us 5 periods. So over the 20-year term, this thing compounded 5 times at the rate of 25%. Let's go back here. And so the farmer asked, because it's something he had set aside, the rental be added to the principal. This is the whole idea of compounding, that it's not paid out, but it's added to the principal, so that not only does the principal base of 10 silver coins compound, but also the interest added to it. So when the boy had reached the age of 20 years, the farmer again went to the moneylender to inquire about the silver, and the lender explained that because the sum had been increased by compound interest, the original 10 pieces of silver had now grown to 30 1/2 pieces. So we can actually check the math on this using the calculation FV, which stands for future value. So we're going to do equals FV, and you can see here Excel tells you returns the future value of an investment based on periodic constant payments and a constant interest rate. So we're going to put parentheses there. It's even telling you what to put in. So the rate is 25%. NPR, we now know what that is. It's referring to the number of times it had compounded over the time frame, so it's 5. The payment, because he did not accept payments, he just let the principal and the interest compound, the payments are 0. And then the present value is going to be a negative 10. Now, why is it negative? It's negative because the investor, the farmer, he paid that out to the moneylender, as that was his initial investment. And now we can close the loop there and press enter, and we see 30. It's saying $30 here, but we know we started with 10 silver coins, so this and this should be the same value type, right? So it doesn't matter if it's dollars, coins, euros, whatever he started with 10, it's going to be 30.5. And we can see here 30 1/2 pieces. So the farmer was well pleased, and because the son did not need the coins, he left them with a money lender. When the son became 50 years of age, the father, meantime, having passed to the other world, the moneylender paid the son in settlement 167 pieces of silver. 167 pieces of silver. So how did they calculate that? Well, we could do the same setup that we did over here. We copy that over. So what's the present value? Well, it's simply this number, because we're going to have another 30 years, so that because he was 20 at this age, now he's 50, so 30 more years have elapsed, right? 50 years of age. And the rate at which it was compounding was 25%, the same format. So the rate and the number of periods is going to be different, right? Because now it's 30 years divided by 4. 7.5 times it compounded over that period. So now we use the same formula. You can actually do Control-C here and just do Control-V. And we see we're getting to 162.7, so it's pretty actually close. It's not exact. 167 pieces of silver, but that should be what it is. The 162.7. So what does this allow you to do for investments that you're considering? Well, you can kind of calculate out what your future expected amount of value will be depending on how much money you put into investment, its interest rate, and the number of times it compounds. Now, this is kind of an interesting case where he is compounding it once every 4 years. Typically with investments, you're getting a rate of return that's an annual rate, and you want to understand whether it is compounded or not. And then this allows you to figure out what your future value is. So that is explaining this whole section right here. And the last thing here, he said, thus in 50 years, had the investment multiplied itself at rental almost 17 times. So what does that mean, almost 17 times? It's taking the future value and dividing it by that 10 initially, and so it's about 16.3 times was the amount that it multiplied. And so this example just really ties into his idea of having the interest, which he kind of calls the children of the laborers. Each dollar is working for him, and the children of that dollar are being put to work as well, so that his amount of investment grows more. So we can actually compare what it would look like in the future if he didn't have that interest work for him. So the way that that would work is it would basically be 25% every 4 years, so there was 50 years, and every 4 years, this divided by 4, he was paid 25% of the amount he had there. So 25% of 10, I'm just going to write this out as the present value, the years, the number of periods, and the rate. So now how do we figure out how much money would he have at the end of 50 years? Well, it would essentially be equal to what he started with, 10, plus the number of times he was paid that 25%. And the 25% is 25% of the original 10 times the number of times that happened, 12.5. So he would end up with $41 or 41 pieces of silver over that 50-year time frame. Whereas in this case, we had put that interest to work for him, he ended up with 162.7. So let's look at how much more he ended up with. 162.7 divided by 41.25. About 4 times more by having that interest work for him. So this is kind of showing you the two different kind of options. If he had taken that interest aside and saved it somewhere without putting it to work, he wouldn't have ended up with as much over the 50-year time frame. Okay, so now I'd like to take you through like a real case analysis of what how this could be useful in real life. So let's say you're considering an investment opportunity and you're looking at, in this case, a REIT. And this REIT here, this is called AIV. It is an apartment REIT and owns lots of apartment buildings all around the US. And you want to figure out, well, if I invest in this REIT and today I don't know, maybe you're 30, how much money would I have when I'm 60, so 30 years from now? So how do we go about thinking about this? Well, we'd consider a certain amount of money you put in. Let's say it's $100, and then we'd consider the number of years, which would actually be the number of periods, NPR. Let's say, so it's going to be 30 years. And then we're going to consider the rate. And where do we get the rate? Well, the rate is the yield here, which we might actually have to adjust for taxes, but let's put that aside right now. Let's say that this is kind of in your retirement fund, your IRA, and so you're kind of deferring paying the taxes on that amount. So we'll put in 3.23%, and REITs have to pay 90% of their cash flows out to investors, so they are going to be kind of forced to pay a consistent dividend. We won't go into the specifics of analyzing REITs in this video, but we'll just use their rate here. And so then we want to think about what could be the possible future value. So now that we have all this information, we can do equals FV. We can look at the rate, the number of periods, payments. We're going to put all of the dividends that we get back into it. So we're not going to take that out. And the present value, again, needs to be a negative amount there. So then in the future, we would have about 2.6 times the amount we started with. And then you can just kind of play around with the different numbers here and think about, well, what if we kind of copied all this over, but the rate was, I don't know, 6%? Well, now you can see kind of the difference of money you would end up with over 30 years. 260 here, and that's 574, which is about 2.2 times the difference. And you can see the rate is kind of about twice that amount as well. Actually, not quite, 1.85. So this is just something where you could use the setup to look at and evaluate different kind of investment opportunities you're considering. Typically, the higher the rate, the higher the risk. Although that's why REITs kind of have this lower rate. You could look at other safe and secure investments, but this is kind of taking the information from the richest man in Babylon and applying it to a specific situation here using Excel. And then we're looking at how this can be applied to just looking at an investment opportunity in general. The last thing I'll leave you with is a exercise to do in the comment, not the comment section, but the description of this video. So you can try to apply what you've learned here to a specific situation and see what you get. All right, so now apply your knowledge answering these 3 questions. Number 1, how would you solve for the future value of an investment opportunity that pays 10% every 2 years and you will reinvest the interest over a time period of 30 years? This means you're not taking any interest out, you're just putting it back into the investment. Your starting investment is $75. How much, for number 2, would you end up if instead of 30 years, it was 40 years and then 50 years? And now practice your knowledge on this specific REIT, which is EXR. It's a self-storage REIT. Let's say you invested $150 today and the interest rate was the same as it currently is over a time period of 15, 30, and 45 years. Now, currently, the interest rate on this is a dividend yield of 3.69%, but when you're watching this video, it could change, so your answer might be different, but you can just see how I did it in the answer key down here. And what you should do is you should go to File and then make a copy and add it to your drive. There should be something here that says add it to your drive, and once you do that, then you'll be actually able to edit this file and then look at the answer key section. All right, good luck with the exercise, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments below.